ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. There we go. Welcome to the Daily Rocket for February 12th, 2016. And of course, because it's Friday night, that means it's time for the North American Power Rankings. I hope you are excited, because I know I am. My name is Shalthis. You know the routine around these parts. Because it is that time of week, we have the top 10 teams in North America to get to reveal, it seems at this point. Importantly, of course, is to note basically what we do here. If this is your first time watching the NA Power Ranking show, the idea is that a committee, currently made up of 4 people, but will be changing soon, we evaluate the teams in North America based off of their performance in various tournaments, things like ESL, the RLC Pro League, Pulsar Premier League, IRCL, and other events that take place in North America that we consider for these rankings. There's certain expectations we have for the events that we choose to use for these rankings, and a lot of them have to do with basically, can we access the event results? Can we check event rosters? Important things like that to help us vet our results. But anyway, you're probably used to this. You know how this game is played by now. But in any event, we are ready to kick things off. We're ready to talk about North America. There is one thing, though, that I did want to cover before we jump into this week's Power Rankings. And we're going to start because it actually has to affect this weekend. Of course, this weekend, this Sunday in particular, being the RLC Pro League Week 6. So with the Week 6 results, we've got some important stuff on our plate because we are coming down to the end of the regular season. But one of the big questions that I've been asked a lot was, are the new Rocket Labs maps going to be added to the map pool for the Pro League? And initially our position was, no, we're not going to add these new maps so late into the Pro League, it'd be crazy. But upon evaluation, we decided, why not allow them to be added if both teams agree to add them? So the way this is going to work is both teams will have the ability to decide independently if they want to include all 3 of the Rocket Labs maps into the map pool. If they both say yes, then they're available. If either team says no or both say no, they're not in. We figure that's a fair way to do it, and it does allow for a little bit of extra variety. So I have my fingers crossed that these maps will be involved in some series, either week 6 or 7. I would really like to see that. But that's something that we have to wait and see. So the options will be there. Of course, the new DFH Snow Day Stadium is now part of the map pool, because there's nothing different about that map except for the aesthetics. But it's just the Rocket Lab maps that have the most curiosity, and we could see some of those in action on Sunday, or maybe not. Depends on the teams, what they choose to do. So, just putting that out there. And figure that's interesting stuff, because, like I said, I would love to see the new Rocket Labs maps in the competition. But in any event, here we are. We have a blank slate, which means I have 10 teams, and we're ready to reveal them. So let's get things started with number 10. Foremost. So Foremost coming in at number 10 to round out the top 10 here. Foremost having a decent week, but just coming into some bad luck. They ran into failure to launch in the round of 16. Had a pretty good match against Ascension in the Pulsar Premier League, but then had a difficult time against Double Tap, losing 3-2. But otherwise, they will drop 1 spot this week, but their performance has otherwise been pretty good. Still maintaining their spot in the top 10, still being a team to keep a close eye on. Definitely going forward when it comes to more ESL events, more Pulsar Premier League events, and anything else that may crop up on the horizon. They're certainly a team that I think will make things interesting. So, foremost coming in at number 10. Number 9, Double Tap. So Double Tap's going to climb one spot this week from last week's 3-way tie in 10th place. They will move into 9th spot, having a good week, a nice showing in the ESL event this past Sunday, but again, having to deal with failure to launch, who decided that since they had the bye week in the RLC Pro League, they were just going to go ahead and win the ESL event. But Double Tap had a nice week, pretty good showing. They had that good match against Foremost, put them in a nice spot, but they didn't quite get far enough here. So, going forward though, I'm going to say keep a really close eye on Double Tap, because I think they're the kind of team that, as the weeks are going to go by, we might start seeing them edge higher and higher in the Pro League, or in the rankings here. So, definitely worth just keeping a close eye on them. Double Tap in at 9th place. Coming in at number 8, Turbulence. So Turbulence, not a lot of movement on their part. Didn't really need to do much of anything on their end. They had a good week as well. Fared well in, I believe they played in the Premier League. That did well. Really not a whole lot to say. Turbulence has just been on a good, solid run lately. They've held on to that number 8 spot for the last several weeks, just due to some very consistent positive performance. Their biggest obstacle being they haven't been able to match up directly with some of the other NA teams, mainly the ones that are in Pro League, that have been doing so well there. But I will say, based off what happens this week in both the ESL and Premier League and IRCL events, and based off of what happens in the Pro League for some of those teams, we could see a team like Double Tap or Turbulence edge up into that top 7. And that would be a little unexpected, but we've seen it happen on the European side. You know, the Pro League team, I believe it's Spectral that edged down into number 8, and Three Musketeers that moved into 7. I believe that's how it went. I'd have to double check. But in any event, Turbulence, again, doing a fantastic job owning number 8. Coming in at number 7, Mocket Esports. The former Not Crew, having certainly a difficult time as of late. A lot of it attributed to the fact that they simply don't play very much, which is actually another big reason that I think SK Gaming is also having a bit of a difficult time on the European side. But as for Mocket goes, they are in a bind, for sure. The former Not team has not won a series, an entire set in the RLC Pro League. They've been doing fairly well in smaller tournaments, but when it comes against teams that are above them and teams that they normally have been able to beat, it's just not there anymore. You know, I had a chance to speak to Low5 just to find out a little bit of insight as to what might be going on, and he did tell me that it just had to do with the amount of playtime they had. You know, they don't play as much as they used to together, and that, with any team, can cause you to start to kind of lose your rhythm and lose your typical chemistry. But otherwise, you know, Mocket is a team that consists of 3, on paper, they are 3 tremendous players. And if you saw that series against Untethered on this past Sunday, you started to see glimpses of what Mocket was capable of, what they have done in the past, and that sort of thing. So it's something that, you know, I think is important to keep an eye on for as far as Mocket goes. I don't expect them to fall much further here, but can't say for sure, especially going into, you know, the last couple weeks of the RLC Pro League, which is probably the only sign of the full Mocket squad competing against these top 10 teams that we're really going to see. But in any event, Mocket coming in at number 7. Number 6, Apollo 11. So Apollo 11 coming in at that number 6 spot, again maintaining that spot from last week. Having a, you know, pretty good showing this past week. Not a whole lot of activity, but a little bit here and there. Not so much luck in the Premier League, the Pulsar Premier League. Struggling a bit there. But otherwise in a decent spot, decent enough to maintain that number 6, but not much to do in terms of moving up. you know, they still got a very good squad there with Ozzy, Husky, and Prime Thunder. Obviously, Prime Thunder's return a couple weeks back was a big move. He paid off exceptionally. He looked just as good this week. Even if the team didn't do as well, he still looked just as good. And that, I think, is worth kind of taking away from what we saw here. So I expect good things for Apollo 11, especially as we're coming in on these last 2 weeks. And Apollo 11 is one of those teams that is directly in competition with teams like Failure to Launch and Untethered to try and grab one of those other 2 playoff spots. I mean, we pretty much can say for sure that Cosmic and Kings are going to the playoffs. That's pretty much a guarantee. But those other 2 spots in North America are a little up to grabs. So Apollo's one of those teams that with a good enough performance could squeeze in there and grab that spot. But otherwise, they've been doing pretty good, but they're going to hold on to number 6 this week. So moving on, number 5, I should say, number 4, a tie for Failure to Launch and Orange Creamsicle. Both teams who, due to the rankings this week, will tie for that 4th place spot. So that moves Orange Creamsicle up 1, and it keeps Failure to Launch steady in 4th place. So a lot of this has to do with a great showing this week by Failure to Launch to win ESL, so they maintain a lot of that momentum. They obviously didn't play in the Pro League, so they lose some of it there. And Orange Creamsicle, of course, looking pretty good in the Pro League as well, with Gambit officially playing on them. When that happens, things tend to look a little better. So Failure and OC are going to tie for 4th place just because there was certainly no good reason to drop Failure. But there was decent enough reason to just edge up Orange Creamsicle. And because of the way the rankings worked, because our committee currently consists of 4 people, it just happened to go out that way. So, Failure and OC tied for 4th place. Again, all 3 of the teams here, in the 4, 4, and 6, those 3 teams are 3 of the 4 main teams that are in contention for the playoff spot. I forgot to mention OC because they're a little bit further away. We know that Kings and Cosmic, they're basically guaranteed. We know Kings are guaranteed. Kings are going to the playoffs, 100% guaranteed. They can't be taken out. Cosmic is like 1 win away from getting into the playoffs, so we know that's going to happen. We also know that Untethered is very close. They have a 10-10 record right now, so they're a lot closer than other teams. Orange Creamsicle is probably the furthest back, aside from Mocket, who, while they're not technically mathematically eliminated, they are all but fully eliminated from being into the playoffs. They basically have to win their entire final series and hope that everybody else around them doesn't get more than 12 wins. Because if 2 teams, other than Cosmic and Kings, get more than 12 wins, then Mocket's out. So, that's all you need to worry about. And of course, we have to look at the head-to-head, and right now, Mocket's lost every head-to-head. So, big opportunity there for Mocket Esports. But in any event, moving forward here, Failure and Orange are in a good spot. So number 3, pretty obvious here, Untethered, coming in that number 3 spot. Still looking like a very strong team. Had a big showing against Mocket this past week. Dominated at 4-1. Looked like a great squad. Looking very threatening going up against some of the big teams, which they're going to have to worry about if they qualify for the playoffs, and they're really close to doing that. They have 10 games to go. 2 weeks of the regular season to play. That's a lot of opportunity to move up, but it's also a lot of opportunity to move down. So, I think they're still in a very good, comfortable place that with their final 2 weeks, they should have no problem qualifying. So I think it's just that 4th spot that Failure, OC, and Apollo are going to be fighting over. And what I think is going to happen, this is my opinion, of course. I think Untethered's going to grab number 3. And the last week, in week 7, one of the last games is Failure to Launch versus Apollo 11. And I think that matchup is going to wind up being for that 4th place spot. It may not be that way. We'll see what happens after this week. But I have a feeling that's how it's going to go, which is going to be incredibly hype. that we're going to have a match that's basically for a playoff spot during the last week of the season. That's something we hoped for. But in any event, Untethered coming in third place, owning that spot, no big surprises there. Coming in at number 2, again, no surprises, Kings of Urban. They will technically drop one spot because last week they tied for the number 1 spot, but because during this week's window, because I know what some of you are going to say. Now, let me clarify something before I get into it. There is a specific time frame that we count towards this week's power rankings. Within that time frame, the only result we had was iBuyPower Cosmic defeating Kings of Urban 3-2 in the RLC Pro League. There was another result in the IRCL. We will talk about that next week, and that will impact next week's rankings, because I know you know what's coming up. Those of you who pay attention to things like the IRCL, you know what I'm talking about. That result did not factor into these rankings. So just keep that in mind. That will factor in to next week's rankings. And that's when things are going to get interesting all over again. But in any event, just focusing on this, obviously we talked about that 2 weeks ago. Or I should say we talked about it last week. We talked about how when Kings of Urban played Cosmic, that was going to basically decide who the official number 1 team was. And surprising many people, Cosmic would end up winning that set 3-2 with A-Money as the substitute. Now, whether it was just an off day for Kings, whether Cosmic just seemed to click exceptionally well with A-Money, or whether they just had a different strategy that Kings wasn't prepared for, or whether they were just completely outplayed, it's really up to interpretation. But in any event, it was Kings of Urban that lost that set, so therefore they drop down to number 2, and your number 1 team, of course, is iBuyPower Cosmic. A little loud out there, but so Cosmic, of course, because they won that series, they broke the tie, they take number 1, and they will maintain that spot for another week. Cosmic still proving to be very difficult to dethrone. Now, so let's just talk about what happened. So, as many of you know, just a few days ago, I think just yesterday as a matter of fact, Kings of Urban, with their normal squad, defeated Cosmic with their normal squad in the IRCL. Just as close, I think it was 3-2 as well, but I was wondering if that result was going to impact these rankings, because that was going to change up everything. But it does not. Now, does that mean that next week Kings of Urban is going to be number 1 again? I don't know, because that's one result we're going to look at. That's a very important result. And I can't say how it's going to wind up because, for one, I'm not on the NA Power Ranking Committee anymore. For those of you who have been keeping up with things, we have we had done for several weeks a Power Ranking Committee trial, where a lot of people applied to be on the Power Ranking Committee, and we were kind of running them through some tests to see how they fared and how they play and how they did with rankings, and see whose rankings we liked and how they fit on the team. And we've brought on new members of the committee. So I don't know if it's all official yet. In fact, I don't know if it's all completely official yet, but I will say that we have decided on 2 new members for North America and 3 new members for EU. There will no longer be any overlap, which means Gibbs, Durkin, and Cloudfuel will exclusively do North America with the new members there, and myself and Doomsy will do EU exclusively with the new members there. So we're kind of going back to normal there on that, or at least back in time a bit. So I will no longer be involved in these power rankings. I will say, based off of a lot of results, I may personally have ranked Kings at number 1, but because the committee is going to be 5 people, the majority would have to do that for it to tilt in that favor. But you can expect now, with 5 people on the committee, fewer ties, more likely to see more tiebreaker scenarios, but it won't be impossible. So It's going to be interesting stuff. But in any event, there you go. There's your power rankings. There's your top 10. Hope you like it. Hold on. Good. I'm good. In any event. Okay. So now is the time of the show where if you've been here before, you know how this goes. Open Q&A if you have any questions about the power rankings, about the competitive scene, about the game itself, about anything else you want to ask. Now is your time to ask in the chat right now. Thank you very much for the bless you. Can't help it. Just gotta do it. Okay. Anywho. Let me catch up through the chat here a little bit. Yep, IRCL yesterday. Okay, here, this is actually something I noticed and I wanted to comment on it. I don't think IRCL should carry as much weight as the Pro League because I feel like most teams focus on the Pro League. That is a conversation we've had. And quite frankly, it's not our fault if a team doesn't try as hard. You know, we use IRCL for now, and I don't know how much longer that's going to continue for, if we're going to keep using IRCL, or even how much longer IRCL is going to be going for. But the fact is, if a team decides that IRCL is not important to them and they're not going to play as hard, that's on them. That's not on us. You know, we're going to look at IRCL the same way we look at any series. We're going to look at the context of the victory, the rosters used, the strength of win, whatever other criteria we may personally want to incorporate into the rankings, and a tournament will not lose or gain importance just because it may seem like it's more important. You know, if a team decides they're not going to play as hard, then that's their fault. They're going to lose ranking spots because of it if that's the case. So, that is important to note. Alright, let's see. Yeah, the other games that Kings and Cosmic will play this week could impact their power ranking position. But that head-to-head is going to carry a lot of weight. You know, at least it would, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't rank NA anymore, so I can't say for sure. But I would have a lot more weight to that. Gibbs is the least biased person on this committee, well, by a long shot. It's not to say that anybody else is, but Gibbs has consistently put his team where they belong, when they belong to be there. You know, it's the same reason we have Doomsea on the EU committee. He doesn't do that. He doesn't share any bias with Team Rocket. They're not even in the top 10, and that's partly due to his... But even if he did, even if he showed a little bit of bias, you know, there's 4 other people on the committee that are going to rank the teams. So he can put them number 1, but if everybody else puts them number 2, they're going to be number 2. Or if everybody puts them number 3, they're going to be number 3, and so on and so forth. So, it doesn't matter if there's bias there. There isn't, but it didn't matter if there was. Okay. Do I think NA is catching up to EU? I actually do, a little bit. They've still got a lot of work to do collectively, but I'm starting to see signs of stronger competition, stronger teams, and a more balanced thing. It used to be very heavily tilted in EU's favor, but it's not quite so much anymore, and that's a very good sign. Hopefully, if we get more international competition, that gap will start to close even more. But it feels like teams are playing a little better on the NA side. Alright, let's see. Who's going to win Mocket tomorrow? No idea. What is the process of bringing in the new maps into tournaments? Well, I talked earlier about how Rocket Lab maps are going to be included in the Pro League. And the way that's going to work is if both teams agree to include the Rocket Labs maps independently, then they'll be included. But if either team says no, they won't be in. Afterwards, like after the Pro League, we will then, as a unit, and as I'm sure other tournament organizers will decide, they're going to decide, we will decide, if we want to incorporate these maps into the normal rotation. And because we use a map pick system, we'll probably put them in there. And we might even incorporate a map ban system as well to allow for a little bit of variety there. Okay. So what you're saying is that next week Kings of Urban is going to be number 1 if it was in your power. I would say that it will depend a lot on how they play their other games, but I personally would have put Kings at number 1 based off of what happened. And in fact, let me take a second and talk about that, because I want to explain that position a bit. I feel that the win that Kings had versus Cosmic means more than the win Cosmic had over Kings this past Sunday. Because Cosmic had a sub. That changes things up. That changed the dynamic of how they played, it changed the dynamic of the strategies they used, and it could have affected how Kings reacted to it because they've played Cosmic so much. They played against the full and normal regulation Cosmic team in the IRCL, and they won. So that means more. When it's a normal roster versus normal roster, that has a bigger impact to me than beating a team who's using a substitute. Even if it's not necessarily a super sub, it's still a sub, and it still changes the dynamic of how they play. You know, because A-Money is not a player who's just going to step into Gibbs' shoes. There's going to be Cosmic with Gibbs and Cosmic with A-Money, and they are basically 2 different teams, and you have to approach them differently. So, you know, I'm still surprised that Kings lost, but I feel like their win has more weight behind it personally. But I'm not on the NA committee anymore, so it doesn't even matter. Anyway, alright, let me move on here. Let's see. I don't know how the seeding for the tournament's going to go, but yes, I believe the first round of the Pro League tournament is going to be NAEU. We want to make sure that there's that, you know, joint effort there right from the start. Since we've gone so long without international competition, we're kind of hungry for it. No, last week I put Kings at number 1 too. It wasn't just Gibbs. I don't even remember if it was Gibbs. But yeah, I put Kings at number 1 last week. I mean, the whole power ranking committee was Gibbs' idea. So we're not going to like kick him off or anything. And he's not done anything to prove that he's not completely honest and just as, doesn't have the same amount of integrity as anybody else on the committee. I know he's a player, but he doesn't tilt the bracket in any way, or the rankings in any way. So the 4 teams in NA that should make it in my opinion, are Cosmic, Kings, Untethered, and Failure. I feel like those teams... I mean, I might even swap Failure with Apollo and still be happy with that. So any of those, that combination of 5 teams, but at least Cosmic, Kings, and Untethered I think should be in there. Hey, Waffle. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, you missed it all. It's all over now. Alright. Trying to get caught up right now, so bear with me. I will still do the Daily Rocket, and I'll still provide explanation. I can't explain why they would necessarily be ranked a certain way without the actual rankers present, but I'll still do the show, yeah. So the Daily Rocket will continue, EU and NA. That is for sure. Alright. Still getting caught up. Sorry. I mean, if OC doesn't play with Gambit, then they're not going to qualify. You know, or they're barely even going to last. Misheard rankers, huh? Yeah, no, just rankers. Anyway, I have fully caught up with the chat, so you may continue with posting your questions. Again, this is the open Q&A portion of the show. If you have any questions about the power rankings, about the competitive scene in North America or Europe, the game itself, or frankly, anything, any question at all, go ahead and post it up in the chat and I will answer it, because that's what I do. So, by all means, let's do this. I'm ready for D&D 2. That's going to be coming up in a few hours on Seismic's channel. And yes, I am very excited for that. We got a chest. We got a chest with stuff in it. We don't even know what's in it yet, because Seismic ended it. Are there going to be any tournaments with NA and EU teams in it soon? Yes, technically. I mean, the RLC Pro League regular season's coming to an end in a few weeks, so we need to do the playoffs, and the playoffs are going to be NA versus EU. So that's the highest level pro tournament with NA and EU that I know of that is coming up very soon. So in a few weeks' time, that'll happen. Alright, Haku. Thank you very much. Why did Cloud mock you by having you fill out a form? Because he values your opinion as a highly skilled player. So, it's not mocking. It's just, you know, showing you respect. Do I feel a player like Gambit deserves better teammates? That's up to Gambit. You know, I feel like he certainly is a very strong player on that team. But the fact is, like, if that's the choice, if that's the team he wants to play for and the players he wants to play with, sometimes it's not just about individual skill if there's a strong team dynamic. I don't know if that's there on OC, because every time I tune in, sometimes they're playing with Gambit, sometimes they're not, and that throws things way off. So, I can't say. Alright. Who do I think will meet in the finale of the RLC Pro League? I assume you mean like the grand finals of the playoff tournament. That's a hard question because I don't know. I don't know how the bracket's going to be seeded. You know, my initial guess is to say Flipside versus Cosmic, or Flipside versus Kings. But I don't know, because I'm not sure exactly how the thing's going to be seeded. Nor do I know the exact format of the tournament yet either. So, you know, those are two big factors that I don't know yet. Flipside usually does exceptionally well in tournaments. In fact, 2/3 of Flipside just beat Crown and Jewels today. Technically 2/3 of Crown and Jewels, but not really, because they were using a sub, but it was a full-time member of the team, not a replacement, like a super sub. I think you may be surprised, Stove King. A lot of people, many players consider Gambit to be one of, if not the, best player in North America. Now, I mean, that's, you know, a debatable point, but, you know, anytime you name something the best, it's always a debatable point. But that's something that players consider. And if you're willing to put up with the drama for the sake of playing with a very talented individual, then maybe you'll pick him up. So, it's all about business, you know? Oh, I know he has. Don't get me wrong, I know why you'd say that. I'm just saying you'd be surprised. Yeah, I know. Woody was, you know, when Woody was part of Weemus, and they were serving as that kind of sub-team for Flipside, that was, you know, they certainly would do that many times. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not debating whether you're right or wrong. I'm just telling you, you'd be surprised by the number of players that would probably still play with Gambit just for the sake of being able to play with one of the top NA players. That's really all it's about. Alright, so we're still going on. We are winding our way down to the end of the show, but the floor is still open if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, other nonsense, whatever you would like to post up in the chat, I will respond to it. Generally, there are some things I'm probably going to ignore, but point being, now is the time to do it before I wrap things up here. Well, you know what? I don't know. Oh, I don't know if you know this. You were playing it, of course you know this. I'll share it with everybody because I'm going to be posting these to YouTube. But for one, I'm most excited to shoutcast Retropia or Utopia Retro. I think that one is it's the most different of all the maps in the game, and it requires the biggest change to play style. You know, you can't play Retropia the same way you'd play any other map in the game. You know, one of the biggest, like, core elements of gameplay is different. Clears. You can't just clear the ball. You have to make educated decisions on where you're going to place that. And you can't just whack it and pray, because it won't travel as far. It won't travel far at all, necessarily, because it'll bounce off a wall, possibly rebound right back on you, or just take a tight bounce into the center. So I really like Retropia. I think that's personally my favorite of the new maps, and it's such a cool map that completely changes the dynamic of the game, and it has that cool little center lip that allows for some very interesting things to potentially happen. So, let's see. Yes, Untethered's the same. Their roster has not changed. To answer your questions, James, or actually kind of a combination, J-Ra and James, you kind of asked similar questions, so I want to address those. Yes, by the time Pro League ends, I expect big changes to be happening, or at least new things to be coming out. Like, you know, I know RLC well. I know what we like to do here, and I don't know what's coming or what's going to be in store, but I'd be damn surprised if we're just going to sit around and wait and not do something cool and keep doing cool stuff. I think we'd like to have the opportunity for more teams to participate, especially the power rank teams. Because, you know, as it stands right now, we've got 10 spots, but 7 of those teams are the ones that play each other. You know, if we can expand it to include those teams in a greater capacity, that'd be really nice. So I don't know what we're going to do, or what you know, what's necessarily on the plate or anything like that. But I know we're just not gonna lollygag and be like, you know, let's just wait, see what happens. You know, we don't wait, we make things happen. All right, let's see. How long do you think Untethered will keep their next sponsor for? Well, Waffle's in here. At least he was. Waffle? How long are you going to keep your next sponsor for? But no, seriously. I mean, you know, they get a good deal. They're a good team. They deserve to get a good sponsor. Oh! Mike. Mike rules. With your $34.74 donation. That is much appreciated, good sir. Thank you very much. You even got the big spender music. Cheers, man. That is great. Thank you so, so much. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, they obviously they kind of started, so to say, as Vanquish Untethered, part of VQ. Then left VQ, then went to Nexus, then left Nexus, and now it's just Untethered yet again. But yeah, I mean, I hope that they just... I just hope that... You really don't like that emote, do you? Keep the donations coming and I'll change it. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding about keeping the donations coming, but I am kidding about that being a requirement to change it. I'll update it. I swear, I'll update it. Ah, thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. I'm trying my best. It's a rough little time of the month. Fortunately, it's early in the month, so I'm just going to keep hammering at it, but... Gotta do what you gotta do, but thank you so, so much for that. But... yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, the emote, right. I know, I don't like it either. I made it because I needed to start. And I was like, it's not quite what I want. It doesn't look good when it's small. So I need to replace it, and I'll figure it out. We'll get something good in its place. I want to make sure I can replace it without it being a problem, but yeah, that's my goal. Oh, yeah, good question, Rizzo. No, I have not finished it. I'm still working with them on that. You know, they're a fairly sizable broadcasting company in Oceania, so this is going to be a process. For certain companies and stuff, it can take time. I thought Corelli did a great job. He did great. He has awesome analysis. He's got a solid voice. I think it worked out really well. You know, I'd like to see him cast some more. It was really good stuff. I'd like to work with him. More color casters, the better. We need more color people involved. That sounded really bad. We need more color casters involved in Rocket League. Who do you think is a better player, Jacob or Licinio? Interesting question. Phrasing. I don't know who I would say is better. They're kind of different players. I think Jacob is a fantastic player. I really do. I think they both kind of fall into slightly different roles. Jacob is more of like a playmaker. He reminds me a lot of, say, Sad Jr. in terms of the role he typically plays on the team. Maybe less offense, generally, because he's usually the guy who sets up Fireburner. Whereas Licinio is certainly more offense-oriented. He's more of just like a dominant striker. So they play a little different, but they're very like neck and neck in a lot of ways. You know, I think looking at their stats in the Pro League, they're fairly comparable in a lot of those stats. So that's a really tough question. I don't think I can say which one's better necessarily. They both do their role. They both play their role very nicely. You know, Untethered's one of those teams though that doesn't fit the usual NA sort of design of having positional players. You know, despite the fact that they rotate a lot more than other other NA teams do. Anyway, phrasing. I know. I'm sorry. You know what I mean. We need more color casters in this game. More players who really know the game well. Do you think the skill ceiling of the game is a strong factor in how well it'll perform in the esports scene? I don't think it's a major factor. I think there's a fairly high skill ceiling to this game that I think is still being touched on. You know, I expect that we're going to see players in a few years' time that are going to do stuff that blows away anything we've seen so far. You know, a lot of what we see is very impressive, but it also has this sense of disorder. So I think this game is going to become a lot cleaner and a lot more precise and a lot more advanced in the years to come. Which I think is helpful, just to keep things fresh a bit. But the beauty of Rocket League is in the fact that it relies so much on the individual skill of the players involved and the skills of the teams involved, and less any kind of outside dynamic of, you know, what sort of car you use or anything like that. Those are much less of a factor than, say, something like League of Legends, which depends on what champion do you use and what items do you buy and when do you buy them, or something like StarCraft in terms of what race do you play, what's the build order you use, you know. It all comes down to how good are you at this game, period. That's it. You can be a dominant player whether you're driving a Merc or a Dominus, you know, especially after the changes they made, but the point being is that that's the important part. Being monotone is definitely a problem, but alright. So let's do it again, another call. If you've got questions, I want to hear them. We're closing in on the first hour of this stream. And I say first hour in the sense of this stream is usually an hour long. But I just care about, you know, what you want to know. So by the way, if you guys don't know, I participate in a Dungeons & Dragons stream, which is hosted by Seismic, you know, the very famous montage editor who's done so many amazing montages for Rocket League. He created this amazing campaign with not only like a gorgeous overlay and these custom maps, and the whole campaign's been done by him, but he also cut together this amazing video opening that's narrated partially by Lo5, who has this brilliant voice. And we play it at the start of every stream, so if you're around at 11 o'clock Eastern tonight, so in about 2 hours, go to twitch.tv/seismicwhite. I'll also host it on here when the stream starts, and watch us play D&D. It can be very crazy, you know, and I have my character, Zoltar Silverkin, who is a sorcerer. We just leveled up, so we're going to be exploring new things. And we just finished a portion of the campaign where we found a chest, and we haven't opened the chest yet. So if you watch us, at least the beginning of the stream, you'll see us open our chest and what we found in it, and that's going to be very exciting. So, and I didn't fix the emote yet, Badger. I didn't get enough donations. How many daisies am I going to kill? I don't know. I got to stop using that spell. I got some new feats, though that are going to allow me to... I got this cool new feat called Versatile Spellcaster that allows me to burn 2 lower-level spells to cast 1 higher-level one. So I can just sacrifice 2 of my level 0 spells and cast another magic missile, which is usually more on target than my Ray of Frost, which I have trouble with. But we'll see. It's a nice option, and, you know, I'm looking forward to tonight to see how it all goes. But yeah, in any event, it's myself, Cloudfuel, Low5, and JamesBot all playing this campaign that's created by Seismic, and he does a great job. So that it really makes things fun, to say the least. There's good stuff in there. You should have seen the first day we did it. Oh man, it was just nuts. When does Rocket League come on OS? Do you mean Mac OS? In which case, I don't know. If you mean Linux, I still don't know. Who do you think the top player in NA and EU are? EU, I personally feel it's Marky Duda. In NA, that's a harder question. It's not quite as clear-cut in North America. A lot of people might say Kronovi. Many people might say Gambit. Some might say Fireburner, for example. I don't really know. That's a really tough question in NA. But for EU, yeah. For EU, I always thought it was Marky. But I will say, it is really close in EU between he and Mike. Mike Rules is probably like... If someone were to say, I think Mike Rules is the #1 player in EU, I wouldn't even contest them on it. Like, it's a very, very tight between those two. And I don't just mean in rankings. Hey-yo. Anyway. Okay. Top NA player is definitely not Mr. Little Thor. I saw him play. In fact, the video is going to go up on YouTube if you missed the stream. I did some test 2v2 games with Doomsy, Little Thor, Nasty Stuff, and Cookseer on the new Rocket Labs maps, because I wanted to test out my casting on those new maps, so I got an idea of how they played and what players would do. And that video is going to go up on YouTube pretty soon. So, here's the thing with Scrubkilla. I know, Lil Thor, I'm just messing with you. Here's the thing with Scrubkilla. He is a very skilled player, but he has trouble as a team player. And that's why I rank Marky and Mike so high, because not only are they very skilled individual players, but they're both exceptional team players. And that's what it takes to be a top player. You can't just be a great solo player and rank very high on the pro scene. You have to be a really good team player. You have to be able to respond and have good decision making in a team environment. And that's why I rank them so highly. Yeah, to be fair, in that 2v2 set, we played 6 games, and Cookseer's team, which started as he and Little Thor, it started as he and Nasty Stuff, and then became he and Little Thor, and every game was won by whichever team Cookseer was on. So, but yeah, again, that whole thing's going to go up on YouTube, and it's going to include the portion of the stream where I took a look at Doomsy's replay, where he made that ridiculous save in the last game. So... I know you did, Little Thor. I'm just giving you crap. You did very well. I think everybody, I think both you and Nasty Stuff did really well in those sets. I wasn't sure what to expect, especially with Doomsy and Cookseer in there, but y'all played really good together. You were just stuck with Doomsy. Hey, Corelli! How you doing? Great job today, by the way. Very nice job shoutcasting today. Is there an NA one-on-one tournament? Not that I know of. That is something that I really wanted ESL to do, but they didn't do it. And haven't done it. But I hope that they'll Or somebody will do it soon. That would be nice. Yeah, but yeah, anyway, Corelli, yeah, you did a great job today. I would love to cast with you at some point. That would be fun. But you did a great job. Hopefully not the last time. Alright. Alright, well, let's do one more call to arms for questions, comments, feedback. If you have any sort of question, not only about the power rankings, but about the competitive scene, about the Pro League, about the game itself, or whatever you want to ask, I might answer it. I answer most questions that are posed in the chat, whether they're related to Rocket League or not. But yeah, we're winding. We're headed to the end of an hour, and that's usually about when the stream winds down. But I'm willing to pad it out a little bit, of course, if things start getting interesting. But what breed are my dogs? I have a big one that is just a mutt. He's just a big old mutt, but he's loud, but he's lovable. You know? And I also have a little American Eskimo, and she is adorable, but just a brat. And that's the tiny one, but yeah, the big one, the mutt named Dudge, he's usually the one you hear on the streams and such, because he just will react to anything. Car driving by, truck driving by, he goes mental. So who won Gfinity? Perpetual Blackout. Perpetual Blackout, which is 2/3 of Flipside Tactics with Woody. What's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning? Usually pee. It's usually how I start my day. When can we expect to see an NA one-on-one tournament? I don't know. It's gonna depend on a lot of things. So I don't think I can say for sure. I don't know. My favorite one-on-one player? I don't know. Scrubkill is really good at that, but there's a lot of really good 1v1 players. So I'd like to see more tournaments for 1v1. If the ball in Rocket League had a daisy painted on it, do I think I would be the best NA player? Only if I had to fire freezing bolts at it. Or no, only if I had to fire freezing bolts at something else. Then they would hit it constantly. I'd have dead-on accuracy. Sorry, I didn't clarify the actually get up part. Yes, should be implied that I actually get out of bed as the very first thing I do. Semantics. Alright. Well, you know what? I think that's probably going to do it for today's stream. Oh. I will not be using Animate Rope. I'm actually going to incorporate Mage Armor as my new spell. But I actually need to get a new tome first. I only had room for 10 spells in my current tome on my character, and I need a new one. But I will not be using Animate Rope yet. Thoughts on the spinny ball stream? Doing that again? I thought it got him banned the last time. How did I come up with the name Shalthis? I needed a name for an elf in Warcraft, World of Warcraft, and the random name generator was giving me nothing, so I just formed two like sounds that I thought sounded like an elf name, and Shalthis was it. And it's kind of stuck since. Yeah, I can't wait for D&D either. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm going to take off now. So I will be back again at about 11 o'clock on Seismic Stream, so that's twitch.tv/seismicwhite. If you're around in 2 hours, make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be fun. We did just level up, so that's going to take some involvement on, you know, our part to make sure all our characters are good. My character's set. I got my new feat, my new spell, all my points distributed. Feeling good. But I do think that there's too many champions, and I know that they're going to fix that. They're going to try to make it a little better. F-E-A-T. Fiat. And not the car Fiat, but F-E-A, whatever. Anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again to Mike for the donation. Always appreciated anybody who's able to donate. It's super appreciative, all things considered, especially nowadays. Means a lot. But there you have it. So I'm going to wrap things up here. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If anybody ever donates when I'm off stream, don't worry, you'll still get your promotion and publicity, and I'll still make sure I hype you up appropriately the next time I stream, just to put that out there. But anyway, thank you again. I'm wrapping up here. Have a wonderful rest of your night or your day, whatever it may be. And if you're going to be around again, make sure, once again, 11 o'clock Eastern, twitch.tv/seismicwhite. Tune in, watch us play Dungeons & Dragons, and enjoy my Zoltar. But anyway, thanks again. I will see you wonderful people next time. Take care.